And why don't we beat the summer heat with some regular K-Sports updates? And for that, we are joined in the studio by our sportscaster, Jason Lee. Welcome back, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hello.
Okay, Jason, last time you gave us a preview of the KBO's All-Star Game, which happened on the weekend. But what else is making headlines in the world of sports?
Okay, remember this, that the week in sports is themed with green today. And I'll tell you what, because yes, the KBO's All-Star Game took place, but you could say that the KBO this week was actually upstaged by a pair of Korean golfers who both won tournaments in the PGA and LPGA respectively. Also, Go Woo-Suk made his major league debut with some ups and downs. I said that that was coming in the future, and it did happen, and I'll get some details on that as well.
Okay, so where do we start? Golf, baseball, golf, what's the bigger news?
You know, they're both big stories, but I think the golf news was probably a little bit more unexpected, so let's start with that. You know, it isn't the first time that this has ever happened, but it is the first time since 2021 that Koreans swept both the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour with victories on the same weekend. And actually, you know what's even more rare? That they did it both on the same calendar day. Let's start with the LPGA with Yoo Hae-han. She actually took her second straight LPGA major as she claimed the Evian Championship in France just 2 weeks after winning the Ladies PGA Championship. How hot is she? You shot a major record 11 under 60 in the third round for a three-stroke lead going into the final day. So hey, should have been smooth sailing all the way, right? Wrong. Canadian Brooke Henderson eagled the par 5 seventh. And then she made a hole-in-one on the very next hole to suddenly put her into the hunt. The two golfers both ended 19 under for the tournament, but Yoo Hae-han birdied a playoff hole to take the $1.4 million top prize. And she is now third in terms of the overall rankings as she sneaks ahead of Kim Hyo-ju, who drops down to fourth. As the second Korean in the top four rankings as well. And remember that the next major is coming on the 30th of this month. That is the Women's Open in England, where Yoo Hae-han is going to go for a third straight major championship. Perhaps, remember, Park In-bi captured 3 straight majors back in 2013. I'm sure she's going to be watching very closely with a lot of interest, but a very historic run so far for Yoo Hae-han. Maybe she'll add to it as well.
Definitely. And I remember Yoo Hae-han saying in an interview that at the press conference before the tournament, she said that all I want to do is play on the weekend. That's it. And now the second major in 2 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, maybe 3. We'll see.
Maybe 3, yes.
We'll see.
We'll definitely keep an eye on it as well. So you did mention that Korean swept both LPGA and PGA.
Yeah.
So which Korean swept or won this weekend at PGA?
Another hot Korean golfer as of late. You know, it's a name that we've been talking about recently. You might remember last month I mentioned that Tom Kim, also known as Kim Ju-hyung, finished third at the U.S. Open. Now, this time he won his first PGA title since 2023 thanks to a 6 under 64 on the final round. That matched the low round of the tournament, and it left him 17 under for a 2-stroke win over Australia's Lee Min-woo. Now, Kim Si-woo also ended with another top 10 finish, placing in 9th at 11 under. Next week is the British Open, so hey, you know, it's great to see all these Koreans playing really well going into the final major of the year. And I might also note that Tom Kim, with that victory, that vaults his ranking up to 33rd right now on the season. So both him and Kim Si-woo doing really well. And again, we got another major coming up for the men, so good to see them playing hot right now.
So much hot news in the world of golf and for Korean golf players. And now let's shift over to the KBO's All-Star Game. So what were some of the biggest highlights?
Oh, there's all sorts of highlights, but you know, the big story, of course, well, kind of, the Nanun team destroyed the Dream Team 10-2, kind of, because yeah, actually, who really cares about the score when it comes to All-Star games in Korea? It's pretty much the least important thing. So let's get to what has become the bigger highlights. Of course, it's the player costumes. You know, before their first appearance on the mound or at the plate, KBO players will participate in some cosplay to entertain the fans. And hey, there were some fun ones this year. LG's Austin Dean dressing up as a cowboy and then later reappearing in a Korean hanbok as well. Lotte's outfielder Hwang Sung-bin, always known to go all out for All-Star games. This time he showed up as a muzzled dog on a leash. Hanwha outfielder Moon Hyun-bin dressed up as the Mona Lisa painting. And probably my favorite was watching Ryu Hyun-jin enter the game as a goat, or I guess you could say the goat, however you want to interpret it. And I found this kind of interesting, you know, and the announcers were saying this as well. Okay, like you got Ryu Hyun-jin out there as a goat. Is that because he thinks that he is the goat of KBO pitching? And kind of thought to myself, I don't know if you could say definitively that he is the goat. I think he's certainly on the Mount Rushmore, along with Chano Park or Park Chano, Choi Dong-won, and Son Dong-yeol, probably, you know, the four big names of KBO or Korean pitching. But interesting to see him dressed up as a goat to kind of bring up the conversation at the very least. And interestingly enough, Ryu Hyun-jin was actually named the top pitcher in the All-Star game as he tossed a scoreless inning in relief. And also, fellow Hanwha Eagles players Ho In-seo and Moon Hyun-bin won MVP and Outstanding Hitter, respectively. Both of them were 4 for 5 at the plate in the game. Certainly a very big day for Hanwha.
Those dress-ups are definitely fans' favorites. And I love how they kind of reflect on the memes that's going on, very popular these days.
Yeah.
One of my favorite was 자려고 누웠는데 양이지. Yes. And also one of our favorite meme, which was 네가 좋아. That was also there as well.
Right.
So definitely fans enjoyed it. Another event that everyone actually looks forward to at the All-Star weekend is the Home Run Derby and also Futures game, which is one of the matches that you also looked forward to. So how was that?
Absolutely. Always a lot of fun once again. You know, it was a big day on the day before as well with the Home Run Derby. The big story to start things off, unfortunately, was that Austin Dean would not be participating. He had tweaked his back and didn't want to make it worse by participating in the competition. So he was actually replaced by SSG's Oh Tae-gon. And for the rules going into the Home Run Derby, the KBO version, is that players are allowed as many home runs as possible before recording 5 outs. And that would then be followed by a 1-minute fever time of just hitting as many long balls as possible against the clock to add to the total. And Oh Tae-gon and Hanwha's Kang Baek-ho reached the finals. They hit 7 each in the preliminary round, and then Kang Baek-ho would go on to win the sudden death round after they were still tied in the finals. So congratulations to Kang Baek-ho for winning the Home Run Derby. And I'll quickly also mention that Kang Baek-ho is going to be a player that Major League Baseball fans should keep an eye on, because I think there's a very distinct possibility that he ends up playing in Major League Baseball next year, perhaps the year after. He was actually eligible to be posted going into this season. I think he realized that he didn't have the best season last year, so he didn't try to get posted. But I think it is on his mind somewhere. He's a former Rookie of the Year, a very big Batman in the KBO, and I think it's a very distinct possibility that he could be a major leaguer in the near future. Speaking of future, as for the Futures game, the Southern All-Stars blanked the Northern team 4-0. Ham Soo-ho and Shin Jae-in hit home runs for the winners, while Nagatese was named the top pitcher in that game.
Okay, and before we move on, Jason, just an impromptu question. As we are now just halfway through the KBO this season, who do you think is the GOAT or maybe currently the best player to, watch out for in the rest of the games?
Okay, so the MVP race right now is probably between Austin Dean as well as Kim Do-young. And Kim Do-young, of course, he was the MVP a couple of seasons ago. Austin Dean, the big first base slugger for the LG Twins. They're both up there in every statistical category, whether it be home runs, batting average, on-base percentage, slugging. Dean, I would say, has the slight lead. He's got a better average. I think they're tied in home runs at 27, but certainly both players to be watching for. And speaking of guys that could end up in the major leagues next year, I think Austin Dean, the way that he's been going as a foreigner, he might be one of those guys that could, make an impact for a major league team next year as well. So, I know with Korean teams, it's one thing when you have a foreign player do really, really well, but you almost don't want him to do too well because that could mean losing him to a major league contract the year after, like Cody Ponce last year, Eric Fetty the year before that. So, they're getting great contributions from him, but we'll see what happens next year for Austin Dean.
Okay, and speaking of the major leagues, Jason, sticking with baseball, you recently mentioned we should expect to see Go Woo-Suk debut in the majors soon, and he did finally make his MLB debut for not the LG Twins, the Minnesota Twins.
The Minnesota Twins, absolutely. And yeah, he made his debut on July 9th as he entered a game against the Cleveland Guardians in the 9th inning of a game that they were losing 4-2. Now, he ended up giving up a solo home run to Patrick Bailey in the game, but otherwise, he completed an inning of work, with that being his only blemish. Now, he then got into a game just 2 days later on the 11th, and this game caught my eye because he entered the game in the 8th inning against the Angels with his Twins leading 5-3. So Go allowed a hit and a walk, but he did manage to complete a scoreless inning, which meant that he received his first major league hold. And it was basically a setup role. The Twins currently do have Yoendry Gomez as their closer right now, and he did record his 11th save of the season in that game. But he's far from being a lock to hold that role for the season. So as I've said before, I'm going to say it again, that it's very possible that if Go Woo-Suk continues the way he's been pitching in the minors at the major league level, there is plenty of room for his to improve his responsibility with the Twins. And remember, he's going to be a 28-year-old free agent going into next season. So if he can put together a good second half, maybe close a few games, get a lot of holds, keep the ERA down, you know what that could mean? That he could be seeing a lot of next year. He could be seeing a lot of green.
Right. Well, from Cortez red, and green to Korean athletes cashing in on success, I guess green really is the word of the week.
That's the color today.
Okay, Jason, thank you very much for those updates. Looking forward to next time.
Thank you.
And thank you, Bella, as always. We're going to have you back here later this week.
Yes, I'll see you soon.